これがレクイエムだ。
Hello, and welcome to a very serious episode of Bizarre Cast. Does mental health and anime correlate? Are you too afraid to leave your mother's basement because of agoraphobia? And are you just going to become a Hikiko Mori? I'm going to leave that mistake in there because I can. And as always, it's Mizukoshi, and today I'm joined by Chip and our guest star Ricky to talk about this. So everyone, go ahead and say hi.
Oh, what's going on?
Hello.
So, today we were supposed to talk about the TV show Bleach. And I thought to myself, you know what? Couple things. One, I don't want to do that. And two, uh, Quinn and I have been going on having a pretty rough go recently. We were
Yeah.
talking about that a bit earlier.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be an interesting topic to explore escapism and its correlation to anime and other mediums as well. So, for those of you unfamiliar, escapism is the tendency to escape from daily reality or routine by indulging in daydreaming, fantasy, or entertainment. And it comes in many forms like drug and alcohol abuse, but in less destructive forms too, like reading and watching TV. And I was thinking that a lot of people in our generation and younger use specifically anime as a form of escapism. I was interested in hearing Ricky's perspective on it, which is why I asked him to join us. But I think that as animes become more popular over the years and depression has become more prevalent due to a variety of factors like the terrible housing market, the planet literally dying, inflation, and people's personal situations, that this would be something that we could explore. So I guess I'll start with this. Do you think there's a correlation between mental health issues and depression with anime? Is it a cultural thing?
Hmm,
I
good
think there
question.
is. I think there is.
You think there is?
I think it might be more of a cultural thing. But definitely in these overdeveloped nations, there seems to be, with the increased rise of anime, an increase in social mental illnesses, like agoraphobia, social anxiety, all that kind of stuff. While I've noticed that like the stigma in the United States of being that kid that likes anime has gotten a lot less harsh, I still think it's just, kids that have these underlying conditions are turning to it completely because it's the only thing that feels normal to them. Same with like video games is like another example for that too. The United States it's totally crazy right now, and I wouldn't blame these kids who basically have to take their life in their own hands anytime they show up to school to want to escape into something that feels more controlled, as crazy as some of the animes can be.
That's not something that I had considered, but it makes sense when you say it out loud. And
Never
I think,
really thought of it from that perspective. I was more thinking in terms of more how dull reality can be sometimes following your daily routine. So personally, when I was a bit younger, I would find going to school pretty boring and kind of go myself into anime for the thrill and the adventures that it has.
yeah, and I think a lot of people, including myself, can relate to sort of falling into that to escape sort of a mundane reality that's become all too commonplace. Uh, I think that on the extreme end, uh, you know, people who feel no relation to their culture or accept another culture above their own exist. But a problem is they don't actually understand the culture that they're trying to accept. And, this can lead to them having a really messed up sense of identity and convention, which might lead to an attraction towards anime specifically, and it can lead to a cycle because from what I've seen, everyone knows about the stigmas of people who enjoy these kind of shows. You know, the Naruto runners. We've all had one, right? I think it can lead to sort of a cycle of anime being a solace to depression and relating more to anime and its appeal and away from their old culture, leading to further depression, sort of outcasting themselves. And, you know, anime is appealing to that sort of audience. That's why isekai have become so popular, is because you see a hero who's an outcast in a new world, you know, being accepted as time goes on.
I
I
feel like
think,
you could rope imposter syndrome into all this as well. Oh, do you want me to explain?
yeah, a little bit, yeah, please.
Unless I have like the wrong definition of imposter syndrome, it basically means being somebody else out in public than who you really are. Uh, which I am very aware that I do constantly. And there's like a different person when I'm watching anime as to like when I'm talking to people. It's not like a stress thing when I'm watching anime, and I can like put myself into the source material. But like when I'm talking to people, it's like, well, in my brain, I know I have to show this emotion, I have to show this kind of face, so I'm just putting on a mask to get through it.
I mean, Ricky, tell me if you can relate to this at all, but I know that I forget who said it, but people have, you know, two faces, really the one that they show to everyone out in public and the one that they really show to themselves. So I think what you're saying there is that you know, express yourself differently in the public eye, but, you know, you're more yourself when you're alone. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, I have like different masks for different situations. So it's not just like one or the other, it's like several, basically.
I mean, you're seeing everyone else's highlight reel, but I mean, I can relate to that.
I mean, I kind of feel like everybody in society right now, even if they fit in, have two different masks. Because I know that I kind of have a professional mask, so I conduct myself differently, almost like an entire different person in a professional setting, and myself at home. So I feel like that may be a necessity that our society has kind of shaped into in order to feel accepted.
Yeah, I agree. It's that sort of a notion of conformity to make everything around you function smoother in society as a whole. But I don't know. That might be suppressing the individual, but that's another society's a whole nother conversation. But
Hmm.
you know, in terms of uh, anime itself, I think that uh, we were talking about this a bit earlier. How you know there's a genre for everything, and it's easy to find solace in specific genres because uh, you feel like you relate more to the main character and it's sort of escaping into a different reality. And that can be a stress relief, but also a bit of a system shock when you're stuck back into, you know, your current mundane life. Is it an unhealthy thing, do you think? At what level does that escapism become unhealthy versus a normal function?
So, for my personal opinion, I feel like escapism can become unhealthy if you tend to isolate yourself more and more, even to those that have the same interests and same hobbies as yourself. You tend to kind of isolate and go down a solo path of just watching more and more of these anime. So that's when it becomes unhealthy because humans are social creatures. So we really need company of at least I'd say one other being in order to feel more normal in a sense.
That
So when you
explains.
go down explain? Can you give me a little more detail?
Like becoming a Hikiko Mori, I think that's what you're getting at, where you completely
Hikiko, yeah. So become a hikikomori as such, where it kind of tends to get more and more dangerous because you kind of fall more and more into your delusion without having any people to really help you kind of fit towards society. So you kind of outcast yourself in that sense, which
Oh.
then could lead to more, probably more of depressive state.
So it sounds like again we're getting back to that cyclical nature that I mentioned before. How would you go about pulling yourself out of that if you're in the anime hole and you don't have that support structure due to essentially outcasting yourself?
uh as somebody that was there, I just started taking pride in my personal hygiene and like took a couple characters and I looked at like what their big influence on me like to me was that I like their standout traits and I was like, how can I achieve some of these better traits better to kind of like mirror myself more. So a lot of it was just like better social understanding and everything like that. I started to try to just talk to people like randomly, just like say hello and stuff. And then with the personal hygiene, I felt better about myself because I was like, oh well, now I'm taking the time to make sure that I smell good or I don't look like a mess or something. But it helped a lot there. And then I started meeting more people that had a lot of the similar interests and just socializing with them until I felt like I wasn't as much of an outcast. Because, like, where I went to school growing up, I felt very separated from everyone else because not just because of like what I liked, but just because in general the people I just did not enjoy their company. So I turned to things like video games and anime to like escape reality because it's like, oh well, here I can feel like I have friends.
Hmm. So would you describe your recovery as a sort of fake it till you make it with after that initial push?
Yeah, pretty much.
Have you had any similar experience like that, Ricky? I know that when you said it out loud, I related to that a little bit in terms of
Hmm.
finding solace in that escapism due to dislike of other people around me for a variety of reasons and having to pull myself up by the thigh high socks.
So my personal experience, I don't think I've ever plunged myself into that deep end. Although there was a 2 year period where, as somebody who was pretty successful throughout high school in terms of academics,